Hello and welcome back to the worst Warmachine channel on the internet. I'm Malorian, and this is Malorian Weekly. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is actually a top 5 list. I've been kind of thinking I should be throwing these in now and then because they're just fun to do, and so let's do one now. Each one of these things here, we could probably talk about like a whole video on their own, but I think it's good to get these things together. But before I go too far, what is this top 5? What are we talking about today? Well, I mean, you already know, you've seen the title of this video. We're going to be talking about the top 5 things that are mistakes that Warmachine players make, and I see them all the time. And like I said, any one of these topics could be a full video. We could probably talk about any one of these for like an hour or something like that, but it's nice to have these all together in one list just because it kind of gives you this checklist to kind of look like, well, which of these things do I do? And also kind of looking out to see like, which of these mistakes have I seen other people do? Because by recognizing any one of these things, you can not just go ahead and fix these things in yourself, but if you notice them in your buddies, help them out. Say like, oh, I actually noticed you doing this, and you can try and improve together and improve your community. So let's break it down. Let's break down the top 5 mistakes that Warmachine players make. And I think the very first one, all right, let's go, oh man, we gotta go starting with number 1. You gotta go to the bottom. Jeez, I don't even know how these lists work. the first thing we're gonna be talking about is number 5, and number 5 is going to be not coming to the table with a plan. Now, this kind of sounds crazy. Like, who would do this? Who would come to a game of Warmachine and not have a plan? You must have something in mind, but it's crazy the amount of times I see this, where what happens is they come to the table and all of a sudden they're like, geez, how should I deploy this? Well, I guess with this spell, I need to be within 6 inches, but what am I going to put it on? And, oh, right, this has to interact, and, oh, wait, you have those things, so how am I going to, oh, geez, or, like, partway through the game, they're doing, like, their synergies and stuff, but there was, like, no plan to actually make it do something that's going to bring on a win condition. It's that type of idea that you have these models that you're throwing together because either it's like, oh, well, the internet says this is a good list, or, oh, these are all cool looking models, but it's very clear that the player has not come to the table with a set strategy in mind of how this list is going to operate together to defeat your opponent. And I mean, if you don't do that, you're just asking for a bad time. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is number 4. And the number 4 mistake that I see players make in Warmachine is sticking to a plan too hard and not looking for other options. Now, this is kind of almost like the reverse of the last one there, but you see this where somebody is like, you know what this is going to do? This is going to kill your caster. I'm going to kill your caster. Or, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to block you out of the zone. Yeah, that's it. I'm going to win on scenario. I'm going to TK, and I'm going to win on scenario. And no matter what that plan is, it might be a great thing to do, right? That we said if you don't do that, that'd be mistake number 1. You want to come with a plan. But you have a singular plan in mind, and they're so dead set on it that they're not looking for anything else that might actually be a better thing to do in that situation. Again, if you build your list with a strategy in mind and you execute it, assuming you did it all well, it should go great. But that being said, sometimes people leave their caster open. Sometimes people don't properly defend the zones. Sometimes this, sometimes that. And if you're looking at the board and you're actually analyzing every single turn and being like, okay, what actually is available? Do I continue with plan A, or is there actually a plan B here available to me that's a higher odds of winning than my plan A? And so by missing out on things like that, sometimes it's like, oh, you could have just won there. Like I totally didn't think of, I didn't camp anything, and my caster actually has pretty low stats, and you could have just won an assassination fairly easy. Or, man, if you just did this and this and this, you could have just won on scenario this turn or whatever, right? But they're not looking for that. Their one goal is all they're kind of going for. All right. Next one we're going to be talking about here, so problem number 3, is going to be over-analysis, or analysis paralysis is another way of talking about it, where they're looking at all these options so much that they're losing time. And death clock is another thing that's very important here. Or maybe it's even just a thing where, they see that what they could be doing, but then they want to really fully assess every single option that they actually have. Now, again, each one of these ones I'm going to be talking about is going to be kind of familiar to the one previous. So I just said that you should be looking for other options, but there's an extreme version of that that's actually not good for you, right? It's one thing to be like, stop, take a breath. Is there assassination or scenario or something else that's a better play? No? Okay, on with plan A. But their other one was like, oh man, okay, so what could I do this? Well, what if I did this and this and this for the assassination? Or what if I did that and that and that? Or what if I got lucky with this? But then I could also go and try and do the scenario. So what if I did this and this? That could clear that up, but I could also clear that out with this. And maybe I want to do a combo plan. I mean, all these things can be interesting and fun, but in a world where we're using death clocks, that doesn't always add value, right? It kind of just ticks away, and all of a sudden something where if you just would have gone with plan A, you might have had X chance of winning. If you just would have gone with plan B, again, X chance of winning, but you threw that all away to the wind by saying, what if instead I just wasted all my time and now I'm going to lose on clock? So over-analysis is something that can definitely be an issue and something you see in other players a lot. All right, so let's move on to the next one. We're going to be moving on to number 2. And what number 2 is going to be for the mistakes that Warmachine players make is getting too emotional about things that already happened. Letting that regret sink in, saying things like, oh, I can't believe I got that roll. I can't believe that I got the double ones. I can't believe you got those triple sixes and killed this thing. I can't believe you went and crippled that system. How lucky are you? Or I can't believe I forgot the proc countercharge. Or I can't believe I just walked into your countercharge. All these types of things. I mean, mistakes are going to happen. Human life is really just a series of regrets compounding on each other. I mean, if we want to get too bleak type thing, but I mean, there's no reason to dwell on it. It's a lot like the last one too, where it is good to do analysis, but when pushed to an extreme, it's then going to be a fault. But all that analysis that we were talking about the last one was looking forward. I mean, if nothing else, we could be saying that there's some value coming from it because we're planning to be setting ourselves up for the future, for the win. In this one here, where we're looking back and we're bemoaning the past, there is no value to be found here, right? No matter what you don't like about what just happened, no matter what regrets you might have, it has occurred. You are now in the situation you are now in, regardless of what you say. And the more time you spend dwelling on the past, the less time you're going to have to actually focus on the future. And it's something too where you can spin yourself into a cycle so much that you're just out of it, right? I've seen people where they just get so worked up where they actually just want to quit the game. They're just no longer in the mindset to be playing competitively or with another person. And they're like, well, whatever, you just take the win. I screwed up. And it's like, well, calm down. It's not that bad. If you just stop, take a deep breath, and continue on, you'd be actually just fine type thing. But they don't. They just dwell, and basically just shooting themselves in the foot in a game that's still, anyone's game type thing. So that's number 2, which is going to be dwelling too much on things that are already done in the past and getting too emotional about them. All right, so that's going to bring us to number 1. What is the number 1 mistake that I see players make in Warmachine? And we talked about a lot of things already. Not coming to the game with a plan, or not realizing that another plan might be better than the plan that you were focusing on and missing out on opportunities. Or over-analysis, analysis paralysis, right? That's another one. And then finally leading into just giving into regret and emotion and getting stuck into this, emotional spiral. So what's going to be number 1? What is the number 1 mistake that I see players make? Well, it really is focusing on all those things I just talked about and not the community. Too often I see players super hyper focused on like, what is the best list I can be doing? What is the best caster out there? What's the way that I can be taking my game up just one more little notch so I can win a little bit more? What can I do? Better game, and then not realizing that if there's not a community, you don't have a game to play. If you don't have opponents that you are getting to play this against, there's going to be no one to play against. And so whether that's making sure that you're engaging in your local Facebook group and, making relationships, talking to people, bringing in new players, finding out what the events are that are coming out, figuring out how you can help with those events, maybe running events yourself, all those types of community building things you need to occur so you can do anything else here. And it really is too bad. I mean, especially in this time right now where there's a lot of metas that are really suffering because they had issues with, whether it is the pandemic that's going on or some people didn't like Mark II to Mark III or whatever it is, metas dying because they focus too much on the competitive, what can I do to improve my game, and not so much on the what can we do to retain this community so there is a game to play. And that is honestly number one. If you don't do that thing, it dies and nothing else matters. So that's it. There's my top 5 things. Hopefully looking from that, there's something that kind of sparked up maybe in yourself, or it's like, oh, you know what? That is something that I'm missing out on that I can do something better with. Or maybe, from people in your area, like, you know what? That is what this person does. And it's not really like a blame thing. I don't want this to come up with like, tag your idiot friends. You can say like, which is the dummy that does this and this and this. But more so like with that second one, work with them to try and improve that, right? If you know somebody that gets super stressed over, like, oh man, I can't believe all the mistakes I made with them. Talk to them. Talk about how it's no big deal. If you play with them, talk them through it. Be like, take a deep breath. It's okay. We can even pause this clock. We'll go and grab, a drink and come back type thing. It's all good. If you're playing up against somebody or know somebody that goes into analysis paralysis, same type of thing. You can talk them through that. Be like, I see you're thinking about this. You've taken this much time. It's a lot going on here. How about we pause and we just quickly talk about this, figure out what has the best odds, and just do it type thing. Or if it's one of the other ones there where they're missing opportunities, when it comes up, tell them about the opportunities. It might mean sometimes you'll lose a game, but it'll start opening up their ideas to like, oh, you know what? I should be looking for these other things all the time. I shouldn't be always focused. Or like that first one we talked about, if you know somebody that they come to the table, they don't have a plan, well, start talking to them about what plans they have. They're like, hey, that's a cool army. What is your list supposed to be doing? How do you normally deploy? What is your plan for your upkeeps? What's going on which spell or on which unit, right? Help them out, build that community, make everything better. So there you go. That's everything for my top 5 mistakes that Warmachine players make. If you have any others or any thoughts of the ones that I talked about here, as always, please post it down below. And otherwise, we'll catch you later. Bye.